The Taiwan Strait dispute turns 75 this year, an epic tale of an underdog facing off against a giant. Once a forgotten player in American foreign policy, Taiwan has emerged as a linchpin in the global power struggle. The island's significance has skyrocketed due to China's meteoric rise and Taiwan's dominance in the semiconductor industry, making it a battleground for the future of technology and power. Even China's leader Xi Jinping, who has vowed to bring Taiwan under Beijing's control by 2049, hinted at the use of force. With Chinese military exercises intensifying and incursions into Taiwan's airspace becoming routine, the threat looms larger than ever. In response, the United States has ramped up its effort to support Taiwan in unprecedented ways. What bold moves has America made, and how could they alter the balance of power in the region? Let's dive into the dramatic ramp-up of America's commitment to the world's hottest hotspot. Toward the end of April, the United States Air Force began sending F-22 Raptors from their base in Virginia to Kadena Air Base near Okinawa. The location was not a coincidence. Because of its size and geostrategic position, Kadena is often called the Keystone of the Pacific. It's the largest USAF base in the region and hosts its biggest combat wing, the 18th. The US Army, Navy, and Marine Corps also have a presence there, making up over 7,500 troops in total. When contractors for the US Department of Defense and Japanese civilian employees are added, the base has a population of over 20,000. There are two 12,100-foot runways, flanked by 15 reinforced and shielded hangars. Such infrastructure permits the base to easily host any aircraft in America's or Japan's respective air fleets. Why has so much investment been put into this place? Although it's been operational since the 1960s, all you need to do is take a look at a map and you'll see why it's so important today. Kadena is only 400 miles away from the Chinese coastline. Shanghai, the largest city in China and one of its major economic centers, is 480 miles away from the base. Kadena has hosted some of America's best aircraft throughout its history. In 1979, it started to support the operations of the then-new F-15 Eagle. It housed that plane until last year when two F-15C and D squadrons withdrew. This withdrawal may be because the Air Force plans to retire these planes and replace them with the F-15EX. F-16s and F-35s have replaced the F-15s, and now the F-22 Raptors from the 27th Fighter Squadron have arrived. About 25 F-22 Raptors are now on the base. This represents a significant fraction of the Air Force's total Raptors in service. It's a dramatic step upward from a typical F-22 deployment, which usually ranges between 6 and 12 aircraft. The concentration of so many Raptors in this place speaks highly about how the United States views the current threat environment, and this elevated threat perception isn't coming from just anywhere. Shanghai isn't the only nearby place of interest. China's Fujian province is also in the area. This province is the host of the Wuyishan Air Base, which is only about 600 miles away from Kadena. This base used to host obsolete aircraft, but last November, China's J-20 Mighty Dragon was spotted there. The Air Force has obviously kept quiet about the reasons for the Raptors' deployment nearby. Officially, the Raptors are only at Kadena as part of a routine rotation, but it's likely that the F-22's new presence there comes as a response to the buildup of J-20 fighters in the area. The F-22 being stationed at Kadena serves numerous purposes. First, it adds to deterrence. Second, the deployment allows for capable intelligence collection. Flying so close to the J-20 in contested airspace will give the USAF more opportunities to learn about China's newest fighter aircraft. For example, an F-22 confronting a J-20 during one of China's gray zone operations in nearby airspace will tell it much about the plane's physical specifications and its visibility to advanced radars like the Raptor's own AN/APG-77 AESA radar. In the worst-case scenario, having an F-22 squadron on standby would significantly help to keep the balance of power against China. In wargames mapping out scenarios of an invasion of Taiwan, the presence of just two Raptors shortly shifts the advantage to the United States. 25 Raptors would be a significant threat to China's plans. If China invades Taiwan and the United States intervenes, the battle for the island would turn into the biggest air confrontation of modern times. Each Raptor would be worth multiple times its number. Despite this, China has more J-20s than the United States has total F-22s, and Beijing is dramatically ramping up production rates. By 2030, China will have over 1,000 of these in service unless something happens to disrupt or slow down the assembly lines. However, the J-20 likely can't match the stealth qualities of the Raptor. The aircraft's shape is generally stealthy compared to fourth-generation aircraft, but the less detectable features are concentrated toward the front. The J-20's radar is also a less advanced AESA version that likely can't match the F-22's AN/APG-77. This would give the Raptor the advantage in combat beyond visual range. When the F-22 gets the AIM-260 JATM, its advantage in combat beyond visual range will increase further. In a dogfight, the Raptor has the advantage of a higher rate of climb, at nearly 70,000 feet per minute compared to the J-20's 60,000. The Raptor is faster too, with a maximum cruise speed of 1,963 knots to the J-20's 1,333. The J-20's longer wings also make it much less maneuverable than the F-22. At long or short range, the J-20 would almost certainly come out on the losing end of a confrontation with the F-22. The 25 Raptors at Kadena would therefore make a significant difference if they were brought to a battle for Taiwan. The base is also an important point for the defense of the Japanese Senkaku Islands, which China has made increasingly provocative moves against. China considers these islands as its territory, although no other country recognizes these claims. The F-22 Raptor would certainly be enough to make Chinese vessels and aircraft think twice about certain activities in the air and waters around these unpopulated but resource-rich and geographically important islands. However, building up the F-22 Raptor force is not the only recent move the United States has made to increase its deterrent posture in the region. Working directly with the Taiwanese military is another. The United States has recently been far more direct in its relationship with Taiwan than traditional foreign policy would indicate. Under the Taiwan's Relations Act of 1979, the United States sells weapons to Taiwan so the island can maintain its defense. Nevertheless, Washington does not officially recognize it. From 1979 until recently, the United States generally avoided sending troops. In 2021, that quietly started to change. Then President Tsai Ing-wen revealed that American instructors were occasionally conducting drills with Taiwanese troops. In early 2024, this cooperation increased. On March 19th, then Taiwanese Defense Minister Chiu Ko-cheng said that American Special Operations troops were on the outlying islands of Taiwan, training that country's armed forces. The island of Kinmen, which is located only 3 miles off the coast of the Chinese city of Xiamen but is controlled by Taiwan, was among these islands. At its closest point, Kinmen is barely a mile away from the Chinese mainland. Taiwanese media also reported that American troops were stationed in the city of Taoyuan, which lies in the northeast of the main island. These troops are reportedly training their Taiwanese counterparts in the use of specialized drones that Taipei hopes to integrate into its special operations forces. The American Institute in Taiwan, the de facto United States embassy there, is coordinating all of these deployments. The deployment of troops to Taiwan was in line with the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, which allowed American troops to train their Taiwanese counterparts for frontline defense. It is a large sign of American commitment to Taiwan, and it was just the start of new troop deployments to the Indo-Pacific region. As the F-22 Raptors started arriving in southern Japan, thousands of new troops were also being deployed to the region. They weren't with their comrades on Taiwanese territory, but the world's most important island was still at the forefront of their minds. On May 5th, the annual Balikatan exercise began. Balikatan is Tagalog for shoulder to shoulder, and as the name implies, Filipino forces are a vital part of this exercise. American, Filipino, and Australian troops conducted drills on islands in the northern Philippines, including Calayan in the Luzon Strait. There were even some French troops that were taking part in the exercises. This area is not only an important shipping lane, it's also just south of Taiwan. The exercises also included locations in the southern Philippines, near the disputed waters of the South China Sea. The 3 countries' troops took part in air assault exercises onto islands like Calayan. The purpose was to increase interoperability between the American, French, Filipino, and Australian militaries and to familiarize them with combined arms operations in an environment that would closely resemble a scenario involving Taiwan. Balikatan had over 16,000 troops participating in it. There was no rest after that particular exercise concluded, though, because the multilateral drills continued up to June 10th. In brutal heat, American and Filipino soldiers trained to respond to threats in tropical jungles. The troops needed to coordinate air and artillery support over this very challenging piece of terrain and unforgiving temperatures. Other key aspects included logistical preparation and plans for acting in contingencies. The navies of all 4 countries had also conducted multilateral exercises in the contentious waters of the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. The June exercise in particular was an innovation because these drills have usually taken place in Hawaii in recent years. The shift in attention to islands close to Taiwan sent an obvious message. The buildup of American forces also comes at an increasingly sensitive time for the Philippines. Manila and Beijing have gotten into steadily more bitter maritime disputes over the last year. Chinese and Filipino Coast Guard vessels have routinely run into each other. The Chinese vessels have often rammed Filipino fishing boats and attempted to bully them out of their internationally recognized exclusive economic zone. The recent exercises are in part a response to this behavior and badly needed on the part of the Philippines to ensure it can defend itself. The buildup of troops and some of America's most powerful military assets near Taiwan comes at an important time for that country too. The island has recently had a change in presidential administrations, with the newly elected President Lai Ching-te taking office on May 20th. Lai is from the same Democratic Progressive Party as his predecessor, Tsai Ing-wen, but he might prove even less of a palatable leader for Beijing. The DPP's official position is that Taiwan is a sovereign and independent country whose legitimacy is derived from the people that live on its territorial islands. It rejects the One China position and denies any connection between Taiwan and the Chinese mainland. The party believes it's unnecessary for Taiwan to formally declare independence since such a thing already exists, though it does want to expand Taiwan's participation in international organizations, which the current status quo forbids it from doing. President Lai, though, came from a more active part of his party's base. When he was mayor of the city of Tainan, he called himself a pragmatic worker for Taiwanese independence. He has moderated since entering the national spotlight. During the campaign, he claimed that it was possible to love Taiwan while having an affinity for China. Lai's campaign and inaugural address signal that he would continue his predecessor's foreign policy and commit to maintaining the status quo in the Strait. Despite pledging not to declare independence formally, Lai's victory in the election was not to China's liking. During the campaign, Chinese officials called Lai and his running mate, Xiao Bikim, a separatist duo. Taiwan's intelligence services reported that China attempted to interfere in the election with information operations designed to help the opposition KMT party win and to drive a wedge between Taiwan and the United States. Most of these methods involved using social media to drive pro-China narratives, but others were more imaginative. One of China's efforts took advantage of previous Taiwanese unease with imported American pork. The Chinese operation then claimed that recent pork imports to Taiwan were poisoned. Other conspiracy theories were far less subtle. There were claims that Taiwan's government was secretly taking blood from unsuspecting citizens and giving it to the United States so that it could manufacture a biological weapon to use against China. Other influence efforts involved China sponsoring trips to the mainland for prominent local leaders. In December 2023, as the election campaign was heating up, Taiwan's Interior Minister, Lin Yuchang, said that at least 556 borough chiefs or village leaders participated in 51 group trips to the mainland. Meanwhile, at least 5 people were prosecuted for allegedly offering free trips to the mainland for dozens of voters. Meals and accommodation for up to 60 people were reportedly included in the travel package. There's no evidence that any of these attempts to steer the election had a significant impact. Given that the DPP won anyway, the efforts were a clear failure. Nevertheless, the information operation was a signal that China would not stand by and watch as affairs on Taiwan evolved in a way that it thought were detrimental to its interests. The election not going China's way could make Beijing believe it must resort to force to reunify Taiwan and the mainland. Meanwhile, the buildup of American troops in the F-22 at this time is a strong signal that the United States will not allow China to unilaterally change the status quo in the Strait. Indeed, the message on these new deployments and exercises was not lost on the leadership in Beijing. Chinese officials have called for the United States to withdraw its new forces from the region, warning of consequences to follow if America fails to heed the warning. On the other hand, the United States' allies welcomed these recent moves. Japan's hosting of the F-22 Raptor at Kadena and the cooperation of the Philippines and Australia in recent exercises suggest that there will be a unified response to any Chinese move against Taiwan. Beijing was not happy about this. Despite the benefits of having the Raptor nearby, there are some risks. Concentrating the F-22 in such numbers so close to China opens up dangers that could potentially be highly expensive. The United States no longer has the manufacturing processes available to make more Raptors. Rebuilding that capacity would take years and hundreds of millions of dollars invested. The F-22 remains the world's best combat aircraft, and it's unlikely to be severely threatened by Chinese air power. However, the Raptor needs infrastructure to operate, and China has a lot of missiles it can use to target this infrastructure. If a conflict breaks out and the Chinese brass times their attack well, it will be able to destroy some of the precious Raptors before they get off the ground with ballistic and cruise missiles. Each lost Raptor would be irreplaceable, and China knows this. For many reasons, the F-22 would be a high-priority target for the Chinese military. Because of its location, Kadena is in the most dangerous zone of the Chinese missile threat. Thousands of Chinese missiles could accurately target it. The J-20 poses its greatest danger in this anti-access area denial mission as well. There is one advantage it has over the Raptor, a much larger payload capacity, as it can reportedly take off with almost 28,000 pounds worth of internal and external weapons compared to the Raptor's 3,915. The J-20 can therefore operate for longer and drop a lot more ordnance in any particular operation. As China has the advantage in number of J-20s, it can better sacrifice a few. After the initial engagement, which would likely destroy the first wave, it can send a second wave of J-20s to attack the Raptors at Kadena when they are in the process of refueling and reloading. In many ways, the Gulf War of 1991 was the origin of the modern Chinese military. Chinese officers were as awed as anyone by the rapid destruction of Iraqi military power. Beijing took two lessons away from the conflict. The first was that they needed to modernize the People's Liberation Army. The second was that the United States and its allies relied heavily on overseas bases. Without those, the American military would not have the logistical support required to conduct an operation on such a scale so far from home. The F-22's comparatively limited range makes the support of bases like Kadena more important. Kadena is an even higher priority target now. Destroying the F-22 on the ground is China's best bet against it in the event that tensions in the regions rise to the point of conflict. The Air Force does have long-standing plans to disperse assets across multiple airfields in the region to increase survivability, however. Leaders from other parts of the world like Europe have called for calm in the region. They argued that the deployment of so many assets in this area increases the risk for accidental confrontation. However, given China's commitment to change the region's status quo, it's unlikely that the tensions will ease anytime soon. For China, Taiwan is the last vestige of a historical humiliation, one whose geographical position blocks its aspirations to becoming the ruler of Asia and a true global power. For the United States, Taiwan is the linchpin to keeping the Chinese military contained in the seas and skies close to its homeland and a vital supply chain for its economy. Neither can permit the other to have Taiwan in its sphere of influence. Unfortunately for China, the status quo means the United States has the advantage in their international rivalry. China's military buildup and the recent moves by the United States signals the importance of this small island to the world's politics, and that isn't likely going to change anytime soon. What do you think about the current state of the dispute over Taiwan? Will China make a move on the island by 2027? Is the United States adequately preparing to counter such a move? Don't forget to let us know in the comments. Also, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more military analysis from military experts. Now go and check out how the Philippines became key to US Pacific strategy, or click this other video instead.